Hello and welcome to the China Repair Studio. So today I thought I would show you how to fix a porcelain plate. Now I have a very beautiful plate here, 18th century Chinese, and it's broken in 5 different parts. So what I'm going to do today is show you how I would glue it and prop it up ready to dry for the next stage. But before I do, if you haven't subscribed before, please subscribe, please like, and also please share. Right, so the first thing I've done with this plate is I have actually washed all the parts very carefully in warm water. I've also made sure that my hands are nice and clean because you don't want to be transferring any dirt from your fingers onto the plate because that will show up when it comes to sanding and painting. So what I like to do first is do a practiced dummy run. So as you can see here, I've actually got a bowl of fruit, which I find for things like plates are quite useful. Now you could have a box of sand. The only problem with that, if you have sand or pebbles, is if you drop a piece, it's very hard to find it. And if it does have glue on the piece, then things are going to stick to it. So it's better to have larger objects. And also, to be honest, a soft landing. So let's have a practice run first. So I've got some fruit and we'll see how it works. And I'm just going to move around the fruit. Having fruit is actually quite useful because you can manoeuvre things around. So that'll be my first piece. And then I would look at the other. I've got 5 pieces here. The next piece would probably go on here. So what I would do with my next piece is take some tape. Now I have some Scotch tape here. I would recommend using some Scotch tape. Don't use sticky sellotape, which is a bit too sticky and does leave a glue residue on, whereas this doesn't. So I'll just do that. I could have taken a couple of bits before actually, so you're nice and organised. There we go. So what I'll do first is we'll just have a demo before we put on properly. Again, we can move fruit around just so to see if it's missing any pieces. So that's on there. And then I would look at my next piece, which I would say would be a central piece. Now I've got 3 more pieces, 2 with the edges, and I have my central piece here. So I would take my piece of sellotape, well, my Scotch tape, and I would slot it into the place. Whoops, actually I could stick that on the other side as well to make sure it does, does stay on. There you go. Do it both sides, hold it in better. So let's put it in there. It doesn't have to be precise, it's just a good idea of where everything is going before we glue it on. Because once the glue is on, you don't want to be messing around with it. So I'll just tape these parts. Very carefully. Again, you could do the back as well. And then there is the larger part and the smaller part. I would probably put the large piece on first. So I'll take another piece of Scotch tape. I might put that into 2. Now porcelain is very fine and it does break quite easily. You can always tell if it's porcelain because you can see through it, whereas a piece of solid china is more dense. So I can see there it's missing some pieces. So that would roughly go there. Right, and then I would have another, yeah, I can see it's slightly out of alignment. That's it. Just to give me an idea. And then I would have another piece, say there. Let's see if this all stands up. Now by doing this I can see that we've actually lost a couple of pieces. There's a chip just here on this side when I look from the underside. The rest is okay. It's got a few cracks and things, but I think that's probably fine for me to start putting into place properly. It's just a rough idea first of all. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to do some mixing up of the glue, and then I'll take it apart and one by one we'll apply the glue properly. Now the glue I like to use is Araldite Glue, and it's the slow release. It's in a blue, and you put 50% of each in, mix it together. So we'll do that now. Now I always mix it in small bottle caps. This is an old milk bottle, highly recommend. So what you do first is you get your glue, and in the bottle just put a little dab in. Always put the lid on straight away so nothing dries out or hardens. And then I will take the white again, and then just 50-50, about another half the same. And then what you need to do is then take a cocktail stick and mix it together very well. Right, so cocktail stick. So here we go. So we've got it here, and if you just mix it, so it almost looks cloudy once it's well mixed. I don't know if you can see that. Once it's mixed together, it's a cloudy colour. And then once that's well and truly mixed in, I like to then use some titanium dioxide. Now I've got this titanium dioxide powder here. A little bit goes a long way. I mean, this will last me probably the rest of my lifetime. I mean, there is so much in there, and you only need a tiny bit. Now what this does, it makes the glue go slightly white. So glue naturally tends to go yellow after time, so this will keep the whiteness. Obviously, if you have something which is a yellowy or brown colour, you may not want to put in any white. But on the whole, especially if I'm doing Chinese, Japanese, porcelain tends to be more blue, as you can see, whereas the Japanese tends to be more white on the base. But even with the blue base, I would still like to put in a tiny bit of titanium dioxide. So what I've done, now we've got some glue onto our stick here. It's going to be nice and easy. And you don't need very much, probably that amount. Let's see how that goes. If you put too much in, it does start to weaken the glue. So you want a bit to just take off the edge, but not so much where the glue is going to be weak. And just mix the powder in together. So once that's nicely mixed, we're then ready to put back our china piece back together properly. Right, so just put the lid back on. Try to keep, when you are doing china repair, all your work surfaces really clear and clean. It's so much easier to find where everything is. What I'll do first actually is just cut just a few of these beforehand, so it makes life a bit easier. Just 3 or 4 pieces. Right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to take this apart slowly. So we're going to do this one last. So that's on this piece. The good thing about having this tape, the Scotch tape, is it sticks, but as I say, it doesn't leave that residue, so it's easier to come off. You can reuse the tape afterwards when we're gluing. And then we've got another piece here. And then you can just remember where they all are. Now doing multiple breaks is quite tricky. It's not like just, you know, putting in, if it was damaged in half and you're just slotting the other half together, that would be so much easier, especially to get a tight fit. When you do have multiple breaks, such as this piece of china, it is more tricky because you are adding another element in, which is the glue. So of course, yes, you could make it tight, but it's never going to be as tight as it originally was because you're adding in some glue in between the joints. So on this last piece here, now we just did one at the front, I think, and one at the back. As I say, you can prop up items depending how large they are. If you had a large platter, for instance, which can be rather large, you can use, I've even opened up drawers and placed it in a drawer and slightly closed it just so it holds in place. Just make sure it's not going to tilt and fall onto the floor. But there's all sorts of different ways. The only thing I wouldn't recommend is putting it into sand, as I said before, because if it does drop, particularly if you have small bits, you'll lose them or the glue will stick to it if you've previously glued. Right, now when we apply glue onto porcelain, you never want to glue both sides. It's an absolute no-no. Only ever glue one side and then apply it to the porcelain. If you glue two sides together, for instance, say I had this piece and this piece, if I had the glue here and the glue here and I stuck it together, the glue would actually try to pull itself apart, and so you wouldn't get that tight fit. If you have glue just on one side of the porcelain and then you put a piece, another side which hasn't got glue on it, it will adhere so much easier and a lot tighter. Also, if you do live in a hot country, it's worth noting that you could actually probably put your porcelain outside in the sun first. You don't want to bake it, but make it nice and warm, because if the porcelain is warm, then the glue will be finer and thinner as it gets warmer, and you get a tighter fit as well. If the glue is cold, it's going to be thicker in consistency, and it's not going to fit so well. Or otherwise, you could, I suppose, put it in an oven. You would have to be very careful for, if you've got a dirty oven, most people do from cooking. You don't want any fat or any, dirt on your porcelain. But yes, if you could put it out in the sun, that would be great. Right, so these two bits here. So I'm just going to do this part here. So let's just get the glue. And you don't need very much. As I say, if you have it too thick, it's going to protrude out too much and you're going to end up with glue everywhere. Now when you do this, you want to make sure every single bit is coated. You don't want to leave any cracks, any holes. All of it has to be completely and utterly coated. Right, there we go. Right, so then what we'll do, place it on. Don't want to be too heavy-handed with it. And you can actually feel, even if you close your eyes, you can feel if there's a ridge. And you want it nice and flush. It's very hard doing it at this angle, to be honest. It's a lot easier when I do it myself and I'm not doing it in front of a camera. Right, so I can feel that on the edge. That's, as I say, it's nice and flush. And just press down slightly. If there's any residual glue, it will just ooze out. Right. Oops. Get that back on. That wasn't very good. Sorry about that. I'm going to keep going. So let's take another piece. At least it didn't hit the porcelain. Accidents. That's life, unfortunately. Right, so that's all nicely done. That's the first part. So the second part is this part here. So again, just make sure where it's placed, which is there. So now I'm going to glue this part and this part. So again, I'll just take my glue and just it's quite interesting looking at other YouTube channels of various other things where everything is so edited. And do you know what? I don't edit anything because I like to show it in real time and actually how it is. Yes, you can drop a phone. Yes, you can drop your china and then you end up with more pieces. But you know what? That's life. And, you know, it is what it is. It's no use trying to make everything look rosy because, you know, things happen and that's how it is. Now, here we go. Let's put that onto there. Usually it's a dog barking or a clock ticking in the background or the washing machine on or somebody knocking at the door. Right, so just a bit more there. Right, so that is nicely coated on both sides. I have to go back onwards just the other way just to make sure. Great. So once that's done, we'll place it. I can just see it's just got a little bit too much glue on there. Just a spare. If you do have any bits of glue which is a bit too much, you can always take it off with some more kitchen roll. I can see a globule there. That's it. I want it quite flush. Right, so we'll go straight in there. And put it nice and tight as we can. Make sure everything's lined up. And it feels good. And on the other side it feels good. So then we will take our sellotape, well, our Scotch tape, and it was at 2 points, I think, wasn't it? So let's just very lightly, so it's quite delicate. That's feeling good. Slight squeeze, make sure there's no excess glue. Because it's a slow glue, you can, you know, manipulate it and move it about a bit as well. So if you do literally become unstuck, you can readjust and, you know, go back to it. Whereas if you did super glue or something, you wouldn't have that time. Right, the next part we're going to do is this large part. So I'm going to, you can see it's got a little nick there. So I'm going to go along here and then just to about here with the glue, and it's the last large piece before the small. Right, so take it here. Now Araldite takes, I would give it a good 24 hours to dry. You can take it off, I mean, well, yes, 24 hours. 48 hours is even better. The longer you leave it, the more it actually hardens and cures. Again, you want to make sure this one's got a few more crevices in this one, so quite tricky with that. Yeah, I can see it there. Please comment down below and tell me which country you're from. I know I have some, as well as English, American, Australian, somebody from Jersey, say Australia, and I think there was a Mexican as well. So I'd love to know. Now you can buy Araldite all sorts of places, hardware stores, Amazon. There is a red one as well, the Araldite glue, but I would highly recommend the black and blue, because that's slower. Right, so I think we're about there. And then once I've done that, I'd just like to go over it just to make sure that I haven't missed it. If you go the other way with the glue, just make sure you haven't missed any pieces. Right, so once we've done that, we can hold our breath and place it carefully. Always go from, look at the back as well as the front as well. There we go. Yeah, it's missing a few pieces there, I can see. I feel there's an edge. That's it. Sometimes it's just a few little tweaks. But as you can see, it's missing a few bits there. Once it's in place and cured, I would actually go back and slightly hold it down, just to make sure that it's nicely in place. And I'll keep double checking the back. I want to make sure. All right, that feels good. An edge there, that's better. Right, so we're on to our last bit, which is here. So again, we're just going to glue this part and the remaining part of this. So I'll just, again, liberally but not too much, and then go back on itself to make sure that you've got everything on there. And then on this side, there we go. I do find this very relaxing. Can be frustrating sometimes, but on the whole I quite enjoy, a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, putting things together. To say, if you are a complete beginner, it's always best perhaps not doing something with multiple breaks like this, and it's all angles as well, so you know it's definitely trickier. You know, if you can do just something a little slightly easier. There we go. Now here's in nicely. As I say, I can see there's a crack here, a piece which is missing, which I can deal with later. You can see this is why I have to put it on, because it starts to move. Now we'll just take our Scotch tape. Again, if you see any which is a bit too much seeping out, so you want to go a little bit, just wipe it down. That's it. There we go. Right, what I'll do is I'll come back to this in about 10 minutes time, and I may just take off any little bits of excess glues like here, and I will just keep slightly just holding it into place, making sure nothing has slipped, and just keep squeezing in and reassessing, making sure that it's nice and straight, that there's no jagged edges. Again, as I said before, with your fingers or even a fingernail, you can always feel, if you can close your eyes, you feel it better, and you'll be able to feel if it's actually in place or not, because things will start, you know, sticking out. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to fix porcelain and this beautiful Chinese 18th century porcelain plate. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, please like and please share. And what I'll do in the next video is I will probably show you this again, and we'll fill in a few of these little cracks. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.